Hello and welcome to our channel. In our videos, we share amazing stories from people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual meetings. We're going to look into the amazing story of Mark Williams today. He says he died and saw a huge change happen on Earth in the second half of 2024. Before getting started, make sure to add your name and city in the comments for good luck and love. With that said, let's look more closely at Mark's case.
Mark Williams is my name. Even though I'm a normal guy with a normal life, what I'm about to tell you is anything but normal. Here's the story of the night that changed my life forever, the one that brought me back from the edge of death with a new take on life and the future. We were trying to work out our differences with my wife Judy, while taking a walk in the evening on my parents' farm in Tennessee. There was a spiritual and emotional trip that night that we would never forget. The farm where my parents raised me is very important to me, because it is full of happy memories and childhood memories. There were green fields as far as the eye could see all around the huge estate, which was surrounded by a dark and strange forest. During my childhood, I could always hear crickets and the sound of leaves moving in the wind. That night, the moon was high in the sky. It was a full moon, so it gave everything a golden glow. The only light we could see was from lanterns. There was a strong smell of damp earth in the air because it was summer and very hot. We were trying to end a fight that started earlier in the day. The angry words we had said to each other were still fresh in our minds, and there was a noticeable tension between us. Judy looked straight ahead, still clearly upset. The moonlight made her blonde hair shine. She finally spoke up. "Mark, we can't keep going like this." Her voice was heavy with anger and sadness. "We're always fighting, and I feel like we're drifting apart." I let out a sigh because her words hurt. "Yes, Judy, I know. But there are times when I think we just don't get each other. I always feel like I let you down." She stopped walking and turned around to face me. The flashlight shone in her blue eyes. "The point is not to let me down, Mark. It's to talk. Just pay attention to what I have to say." I tried to say what I thought, but the words just wouldn't come out. "I love you, Judy. I really do. But I have my own problems too, and it's hard to keep everything in check sometimes." I saw the tightness in her face ease a bit when she sighed. "I know you're trying, and I like that. We just need to work out how to get through this together." Before we could go on, there was a quick, shrill sound that broke the peace of the night, a loud crack, and then another bang. I felt a terrible pain in my chest and stomach before I could do anything. I had been shot twice, and the pain was terrible. Before everything went black, the last thing I saw was Judy yelling and desperately trying to help me, even though she hurt her leg. "Mark, leave now. Pay attention," she screamed, and her voice was scared and desperate. The pain was too much for me to handle, and I could feel my power leaving me. As I fell to the ground, the world around me got darker and my vision got blurry. I thought about Judy and wanted to keep her safe. "Judy." The words I tried to say barely got out as a whisper. As she tried to stop the bleeding and call for help, I saw fear in her eyes as well as a fierce resolve. Things went crazy, and I thought this was the end of my life. After that, though, something amazing happened. Every feeling and important moment in my life flashed before my eyes. All of a sudden, I was outside of my body, looking down at the horrible scene below. Judy was so sad about me that she was doing everything she could to save me. As I was pulled to another place, I didn't feel scared. Instead, I felt a deep peace and love that filled me up. The place I was in was breathtakingly beautiful. There were endless green fields with bright flowers all over them, and the light was soft and welcome. The air was filled with the sweet smell of flowers, and I felt like I was wrapped in a warm blanket of peace and quiet. Right there, among the flowers, was my grandmother Delia. She died when I was a youth, but now she was here, smiling at me in a way that made my heart melt. She said in a soft voice, "It's not your time, Mark." Her voice was just as soothing as I remembered it being. There's still a lot to do. Seeing her again made me feel a lot of things. While she was dying, she held my hand and told me to be strong the last time I saw her. She looked more alive than ever, though, and her eyes were shining with love and warmth. "Is that really you, Grandma?" I asked, and my voice was shaking with emotion. She gave me a nod, stepped closer, and put out her hand. Yes, Mark, it's me. This place is safe for you, but you can't stay. There are still many things you need to do. As she talked, I felt a deep sense of calm, like all my problems and fears had gone away. She spoke quickly, though, even though it was a calm moment. This made me realize that my trip was far from over. I heard a man's voice in the distance all of a sudden. It was a voice I had never heard before, but it felt strangely familiar. When I turned around, I saw a strong man coming toward me. His face was filled with pride. The grandfather walked up to Mark and said, "I'm so proud of you, Mark." "Grandfather?" I asked, even though I had never met him before. "How do you know who I am?" Laughing, he grabbed me and held me close. "I have been watching over you for a long time. Even though you couldn't see me, I was always there for you when things got hard. You are strong like the Williams family." His words really moved me, and I realized that even though I had never met my paternal grandpa, he had always been with me, guiding me in some way I couldn't see. A small hand slipped into mine as we talked. I saw an 8-year-old girl with a beautiful smile when I looked down. Her voice was as sweet as honey as she said, "You must be Mark." "My name is Sis. I lived before you were born, but I didn't make it. I love you, Mom. Tell her I'm okay." Hearing those words broke my heart. I had no idea I had a sister who had died before she was born. When she asked, I promised, "I'll tell her." I felt an instant, deep bond with this little soul. As I stood there with my family and friends, a bright light started to appear in front of us. It was a very strong force, but it was also very soothing. The light got brighter, and a figure with an air of peace and wisdom came into view. "Mark," the voice said in a soft but firm tone, "you have a very important job to do here on Earth. You don't have to leave yet, but there are some things you need to know before you come back." The being of light began to tell the truth about what would happen in the future. The world will have a lot of conflict and a fight for balance. But after the middle of 2024, a big change will happen. There will be big changes on Earth, and you will be a part of this new start. I could feel the weight of what he said hitting me hard. "What should I do?" I asked, trying to understand how big the problem was. "When you come back, you won't remember everything," the being of light said. "Remember this, though. Let love and kindness lead you. Believe what your gut tells you and follow your heart." I felt a tug and was pulled back into my body all of a sudden. When I woke up, I was in a hospital, where machines were beeping and disinfectant smelled clean. Judy was sitting next to me. Her face was worn out and worried. She was holding my hand, and she felt so much better when she saw that I was awake. She yelled, "Mark, you're back," with tears running down her face. I was really scared. I finally got out. "I'm here, Judy," even though my voice was still weak. "Everything will be fine." After that, the days were a blur of pain and slow healing. With its white walls and steady hum of machines, the hospital became a place where people had to think. I was taken back to that amazing experience every time I closed my eyes. Even though it was hard for me to heal, the deep peace and love I felt when I was with my family and friends remained. Judy stayed by my side the whole time. She looked worried and determined on her face. She refused to leave and chose to sleep in a chair next to my bed, which was too uncomfortable. When I told her to go home and rest, she would say, "I'm not leaving you." Not after what took place. In the beginning, I felt lost and confused, and it was hard for me to tell the difference between reality and the pictures that seemed to be coming to me in my dreams. But as time went on, the memories of my near-death experience became more clear. I understood that what I had seen was real, just like everything else around me. While Judy slept one morning, I took the time to think about what had happened. Even though the pain was getting better, it was still having a big effect on my emotions. I had to tell someone about what I was going through. I took the chance when the doctor came for his daily rounds. "Doctor, may I speak with you about something?" My voice was still weak when I asked, Of course, Mark, he said as he looked at my scans and adjusted his glasses. What do you need? I told them about my near-death experience and how I met my grandma, my grandfather, and the girl who turned out to be my stillborn sister. I thought he would think I was crazy, but to my surprise, he just smiled and nodded. Mark, you're not the first patient to share such experiences, he said quietly. A lot of people who have near-death experiences say they saw loved ones in peaceful places after they died. Even though I can't prove it scientifically, I think these encounters are very real for the people who have them. The things he said made me feel better. What should I do with this now? I asked again to get more information. He told her, whatever you decide to do is your choice. But I think these things can give you a new sense of purpose. You might want to think about what that means for you. When I was finally let out of the hospital, going back to our house was a huge relief. The house was nice after being in the hospital because it had clean walls and the smell of home, which made me feel better. Judy and I agreed that we needed some time away from everything to think about what had happened. During the first few days, we all kept to ourselves and dealt with our own feelings and thoughts. It was clear that Judy was having a hard time understanding what had passed. She knew something out of the ordinary had happened, but she was trying to figure out how it fits with what we knew to be true. She spoke up one night as we watched the sun go down from the porch. Mark, what did you see? She asked in a soft voice that showed she wasn't sure. I need to understand. When I took her hand, I could feel how important the moment was. Judy, I saw things I didn't know were there. I saw a sister I had never met, my grandmother, and my grandpa. They told me it wasn't my time yet, and that I'm here for a reason. Judy was still for a moment as she thought about what I said. And what does this mean for us? I gently squeezed her hand and said, it means we need to enjoy every moment we have together. We must discover a way to live our lives with more aim and love. That's what they told me. Over the next few days, I started to notice small but important changes. My dreams got more and more real, and sometimes they felt like real life. Sometimes I dreamed of fields of flowers, the calming presence of my loved ones, and sometimes the being of light who had told me about the future. One night I had a dream that was really scary. I was back in the flower field with my grandma, walking with her. Remember, Mark, she said, and I can still hear her words. Love and kindness are your guides. Hold on to your gut. When I woke up, these words were still in my mind. I felt like they weren't just dreams. I could see that a new road was opening up in front of me, and I needed to follow it. Along with these dreams, I began to see shadows and hear words that I couldn't explain. As I walked through the house sometimes, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, not in a scary way, but in a comforting way, like they were leading me. I looked into near-death experiences because I wanted to understand this new world. I read a lot of stories from people who had had similar experiences and said they felt more connected to the spiritual world. This exploration made me feel better about the fact that I wasn't on this trip by myself. When I told Judy what I had found, she replied with a deep understanding. Mark, I don't fully understand this, but I can see how it has changed you. If you want to look into this more, I will back you up. Judy always stood by me as I set out on a journey to understand this new awareness and make it a part of my life. I went to support groups, read a lot of books on meditation and spirituality, and started to be more aware. Each of these steps brought me one step closer to the peace and clarity I felt when I was close to dying. I also began telling my friends and family my story in an honest way. Different people had different reactions. Some were suspicious, while others were interested and even motivated by what I said. Talking about my experience has not only helped me think about my own life and meaning, but it has also inspired people around me to do the same. My life changed in ways I never thought possible as the months went by. The experience of almost dying changed the way I think about both life and death. I began to value the little things in life more highly. Every sunrise seemed brighter, and every laugh seemed more important. My love and connection with Judy grew stronger, and our friendship grew in ways it had never grown before. We chose to stop by a peaceful lake one day as we walked around the same farm where it all began. The blue sky was reflected in the water, and the soft sounds of nature surrounded us, making it the perfect place to think. "Mark, how do you feel now?" When Judy asked, her eyes were filled with worry and interest. "You seem different, more centered." Before answering, I took a moment to think. "I feel more at peace than ever," I smiled at her. "I used to worry a lot about the future and what was to come. I now feel like I have a goal or a reason for being here. Even though I don't know everything about it, I'm sure I'm going in the right direction." Judy squeezed my hand, and her face showed that she understood and was happy about it. "Good for you, Mark. I believe that this event has brought us closer together. I've learned to value every moment we spend together." As we looked out at the sky, I felt a wave of thanks. Being alive and having the chance to make a difference made me feel incredibly grateful. I set out to share my story with more people, because I wanted to help them find the peace and understanding I had. I started to write pieces about what happened to me, and went to talks and seminars about spirituality and why we are here on Earth. The response was mostly positive, and a lot of people got in touch to share their own stories and ask for help. One woman told me after the talk, "Mark, your story made me want to get back in touch with my family." I realized I was letting trivial matters overshadow what really matters. At another event, an older man came up to me. "I've never believed in these things, but what you went through has changed the way I think about the afterlife. Thanks for telling me." These experiences made me even more determined to stay on the path I had chosen. Every person I helped, even if it was just by giving them hope, made me feel like I was taking a step toward the mission my loved ones and the being of light had told me about. Of course, things did not always go well. There were times when I had doubts and problems, and some people didn't believe what I was saying. One man at an event told her, "It's just a figment of your imagination. You were hallucinating." These criticisms could have made me give up, but I chose to see them as a chance to strengthen my faith and determination. Every problem was a chance to learn and grow. These problems became an important part of my journey. They made me stronger and helped me understand and care more about other people. Over time, these problems happened less often, and new chances came up. I was asked to be in a video about near-death experiences, which gave me the chance to tell my story to a lot more people. It was amazing to see how my journey affected so many people around the world. Even though these good things were happening, I couldn't get rid of the word from being of light on the big change that was coming in the second half of 2024. I kept thinking about the idea of a big conflict followed by a world change, and I felt like I had a connection to it. I paid more attention to what was going on in the world, looking for signs that this change was about to happen. Over time, I saw growing political and social tensions around the world. It was as if everyone was getting ready for something huge that would change everything. I told Judy about my worries, and she always stood by me. She told me, "Mark, you're not alone in this. We'll face whatever comes together." As early July 2024 goes on, the feeling that something big is about to happen is stronger than ever. The being of light's word about a big change coming in the second half of this year is still very much in the forefront of my mind. It seems like the world is getting ready for something big, even if we're not aware of it. And Judy and I have spent the last few months getting ready in every way possible. Our house in the quiet Tennessee town of Spring Hill has become a place where people gather to do things and think. Once filled with photos and mementos, the walls now show maps, emergency plans, and lists of things that must be kept on hand. We've decided to stock up on food, water, and other necessities. Not because we're scared, but because we want to be ready for anything. Judy and I had a serious talk about the future one afternoon while we were sitting in the living room. While I looked over my class notes, Judy was sitting in the armchair and reading a book about spirituality. "What do you think about this change, Mark? Will it be good or bad?" She looked up from her book and asked, her tone a mix of interest and worry. After giving her question some thought, I told her, "Judy, I think it will be a mix of both. When big things change, they often bring both problems and chances. The most important thing is how we react. It's important to be ready to help others find hope and see the good in even the worst situations. She agreed with a smile and a nod. You're right. We need to be as ready as possible, but we also need to be ready for anything that might happen. We're all in this together. I felt very calm after having this talk. We were sure we were going in the right direction because we were doing everything we could to get ready and help other people. I was recently asked to a get-together with other people who, like me, have had moments when they thought they were going to die. This event took place at a peaceful retreat in the woods, far from the noise and chaos of city life. We thought it was important to be in such a peaceful place to meet and talk about our experiences. When I got to the retreat, I was greeted by a group of people from very different backgrounds. Each had its own story, but they all had one thing in common: love, peace, and purpose. We felt a spiritual link with each other. Sarah, a young mother who had a near-death experience while giving birth, asked me, "Mark, what was the most important thing you learned from your experience?" For me, it was realizing that love is the strongest force there is, I said. There is a bigger picture here than just our own lives. We are not here by accident. We are here to make a difference. Everyone there felt deeply moved by these words. It was hard to explain, but there was a deep feeling of unity and strength. As the second part of 2024 got closer, we were ready for any problems that might come up. The news was mostly about wars, natural disasters, and economic problems, which made global tensions rise even more. The world seemed to be about to go through a huge change, and there was an undeniable sense that something important was about to happen. For the first time, there were signs of trouble in June. Around the world, protests broke out, and political unrest reached levels that had never been seen before. A lot of people were desperate for answers and solutions, which made the mood very uncertain. My dreams and images became even clearer and more vivid during this time of trouble. I saw a huge battlefield where people fought with words and thoughts instead of weapons. Truth and justice were being fought for, and I was in the middle of it all, trying to keep the peace. It was hot and sweaty when I woke up. It became clear that the signs I got from being close to death were coming true right in front of my eyes. I felt like I had to act right away to help bring about peace and change. With Judy's unwavering backing, I started setting up discussion groups in our neighborhood. The goal was to give people a safe place to talk about their worries and dreams for the future. We also asked experts to talk about things like resolving conflicts, sustainability, and faith. For many, these meetings became a source of hope. One of the players, John, said, "Mark, this is beyond amazing. There is finally a place for me to talk about my fears and look for real answers. Our work in the neighborhood has given us a strong sense of purpose and community. We were helping people get ready not only physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. When things were really bad that night, I had one of the strongest dreams I've ever had. When I dreamed I was back in the flower field with my family and friends. The being of light was closer this time, and its presence was stronger. Mark, the transformation is underway, it told you. What's going on now is just the start. The world is changing and getting back in order. The key to this new world lies with you and everyone else who is waking up." "What else can we do to help?" I asked because I could tell the voice was urgent. "Keep spreading kindness and love. Help other people find their own inner light." It replied, "True change starts in each heart, and together you can make a new world." When I woke up, those words were still fresh in my mind. I knew we were on the right track even though there were problems. We knew that we couldn't do this by ourselves. By putting our group in touch with people from around the world, we were able to create a global support network. We shared knowledge, experiences, and resources through technology, which brought people together around a common goal. "Mark, this is truly amazing," Linda exclaimed, her name now well known in our town. "We're making a real difference and creating something bigger than ourselves." After the network grew quickly, we quickly started planning both online and in-person meetings to talk about how to solve problems and promote peace. There was a real sense of togetherness and purpose, and I thought we were really a part of something amazing. As the second half of 2024 draws to a close, the intense events seem to be easing up, and the world seems to be gaining a new energy. Even though things are still changing, you can feel the hope and promise in the air. Our neighborhood is still doing great, and Judy, I, and everyone else participating are still committed to making this transition easier. Our knowledge tells us that we are just at the start of a new age marked by love, kindness, and connection. When I think about it all, I see that the night on my parents' farm was the start of this amazing trip. My near-death experience wasn't a one-time thing. It was the start of something much bigger. Every day this trip continues, giving us new chances to learn, grow, and help others. Mark Williams used to be a normal person, but now he's changed into something amazing. This is just the beginning of a long story about love, hope, and change.